Amanda, I've been watching you. You're a very brilliant girl. Very brilliant. But brilliance alone doesn't pay school fees, Abby. Listen, I can help you. All you have to do is help me too. Just the two of us. Tonight. My office. By 9 p.m. You understand what I'm saying?
That was the moment my whole world almost ended. Not because of the question he asked me, but because of what I almost did in response. I won't lie to you. For one full second, I actually considered it. My name is Amanda Okafor. Amanda, which means God won't fall. And I swear, some days I had to remind myself of that name because nothing about my life felt good at all. I grew up in a small one-room apartment in Ajah, Lagos. If you know Ajah, you know the kind of place I'm talking about. Dusty roads, market women shouting from every corner, generators that sound like they're about to explode every night. My mother, Mama Amanda, people called her Nekechi, was a trader at the Ajah market. She sold tomatoes and peppers. Tomatoes that would be fresh by Monday and rotten by Thursday. That was her business. That was our survival. My father, my father left when I was 7. Just packed his bag one Sunday morning after church, told my mother he was going to see his friend in Ikorodu, and he never came back. Never. No phone call, no message. Nothing. My mother cried for 3 months straight. 3 months! She would be in the kitchen, pretending to be fine, and I would hear her voice breaking through the thin wall that separated our room from the kitchen. I was 7, but I understood. I understood that men could be the most dangerous thing in a woman's life. So my mother raised me and my younger brother, Emeka, all by herself. Emeka was 5 years younger than me. Sweet boy, talkative, always laughing. He had this gap in his teeth that made him look like a small comedian. Emeka would say, Chichi, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a mansion. And I would laugh, because what else could I do? School was my escape. My mother didn't have money, but she had something more powerful. She had faith. She would say, Amanda, education is the key. Even if I have to sell all the tomatoes in Ajah market, you will finish school. And she meant it. That woman sold tomatoes under the hot sun, rain beating her face, so that I could sit in a classroom. So I worked hard. I mean, really hard. I was the type of student who would read under the streetlight when NEPA took light, which was almost every night. I would sit outside with my textbook and a small candle, reading biochemistry until my eyes burned. And when I wrote my JAM, I scored 287. 287, my mother cried. My neighbors came out to celebrate. Auntie Blessing from the house next door gave me a 500 and said, this girl will be doctor. I wasn't planning to be a doctor. I wanted to study biochemistry at the University of Lagos. But the point is, people believed in me, and I got in. UNILAG, the University of Lagos. I cannot describe to you the day that admission letter came. My mother held it up like it was a lottery ticket. She was shouting, my daughter, UNILAG, my daughter. Emeka was running around the compound screaming. Even the landlord came out. That was one of the happiest days of my life. But happy days in Nigeria, they don't last too long, do they? When I got to UNILAG, I quickly realized something. University was not secondary school. It was a different world entirely. The people around me had money. They had laptops, iPhones, nice clothes. Some of them had cars. Cars in university. And here I was, wearing the same 2 pairs of slippers I came with, sharing a room with 4 other girls in Jaja Hall, and eating Indomie noodles for dinner almost every night. My mother was sending me whatever she could. Sometimes Malesa 15,000 a month. Sometimes Male 10,000. Sometimes nothing. And when she said nothing, she would call me and say, Amanda, just manage. Market was slow this week. God will provide. And I would say, it's okay, Mama. I understand. But inside, I was drowning. I started doing everything I could to survive. I tutored Jambite students on weekends. Small money, but something. I worked at a restaurant on Wednesdays and Fridays. A woman named the Chief Mrs. Adesola owned it on Lekki Phase 1. She was a heavy woman with big gold rings on every finger. She would shout at us, "You girls are slow, oh! Table 6 still hasn't gotten their pepper soup." But she paid well. As a 3,000 per shift. That was my lifeline. But even with all that, school fees was a monster. The department fees, the faculty fees, the departmental association fees. They had fees for everything. It was like the school believed that students had money trees in their pockets. And when you couldn't pay, they would put your name on the list of shame. They would post it on the notice board for everyone to see. Outstanding. That was where my problems really started. In my second year, I had a course called Advanced Organic Chemistry. The lecturer was Professor Adebayo. Tall man, thin. He wore round glasses that made him look like an intellectual, and he always dressed in these flowing agbada gowns, as if he was going to a party instead of teaching. He had a grey beard and this smile that never quite reached his eyes. If you know what I mean, he would be smiling at you, but his eyes were calculating something. Professor Adebayo was one of those lecturers who loved attention. He would walk into the lecture hall and everyone had to go quiet. He would clear his throat, adjust his glasses, and begin. And the thing was, he was actually a good teacher. His explanations were clear. He made chemistry sound almost beautiful. Students respected him. But there was something about him that made my skin crawl. I couldn't explain it at first. It was little things. The way he would linger when female students came to ask him questions after class. The way his eyes would travel down when a girl was standing in front of his desk. The way he would sometimes make comments, innocent seeming comments, but there was always something underneath. One day, I went to his office to ask about my test score. I had gotten 34 out of 50, and I wanted to understand where I lost marks. I knocked on his door. He said, "Come in." I entered. He was sitting behind his desk, and there was only one chair, the one in front of his desk. So I sat down. He looked at my paper, then looked at me, then looked at my paper again. Then he said something that made me uncomfortable. "Amanda, you are a very beautiful girl. Have anyone told you that?" I froze. I didn't know what to say. I mumbled something like, "Thank you, sir." And he leaned forward and said, "Beauty and intelligence. Very rare combination. Very rare." I just wanted to leave. I took my paper, said thank you again, and walked out quickly. When I got outside, my hands were shaking. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe he was just being friendly. Nigerian men can be like that sometimes. They think they're giving you a compliment, but they don't understand how uncomfortable it makes you feel. But that was just the beginning. Now, while all this was happening, there was a boy in my department. His name was Tunde Akinola. Tall, dark, handsome, the kind of boy that every girl in the faculty whispered about. He was from Ibadan. His father was a lecturer, not at UNILAG, at the University of Ibadan. So Tunde was not exactly rich, but he wasn't struggling the way I was. He had a clean shirt every day. He had a laptop. He had data on his phone. In my world, that was practically a billionaire. Tunde and I met during a group assignment in our first year. We were put in the same group for a biochemistry presentation. He was smart, very smart. He would crack jokes during group meetings, and his laugh was this deep, warm sound that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. He wasn't the loud, showy type. He was quiet and thoughtful, the kind of boy who would remember small things. Like when I mentioned that I loved groundnut soup, and the next week he brought me a small container of groundnut soup that his mother sent from Ibadan. Take, he said, pushing the container into my hands. My mama made too much. I looked at him. Your mama made too much for who? For me? He shrugged. Just eat, Amanda. You're always eating Indomie. Indomie cannot be somebody's whole life. I laughed. I couldn't help it. And that was the beginning of something between us. Something I didn't have a name for at first. We weren't dating. We were just close. He would help me with difficult topics. I would help him edit his essays. We studied together in the library. We walked together after lectures. And slowly, I started to feel something, a warmth in my chest whenever he was around. But I didn't say anything. How could I? I was struggling to feed myself. I was struggling to pay school fees. I didn't have time for love. Love was a luxury I couldn't afford. And besides, there was Amara. Amara Obi was my roommate, slim, pretty girl from Enugu. She had smooth dark skin and this laugh that could fill an entire room. Amara was the social type. She knew everybody. She could walk into any party, any gathering, any event, and within 10 minutes, she would be the center of attention. She was the opposite of me. I was quiet, reserved, focused. Amara was loud, bubbly, and spontaneous. We became friends because we were roommates, and in university, proximity creates friendship. You share food, share gossip, share problems. Amara would tell me about her family. Her father was a civil servant. Her mother was a teacher. They weren't rich, but they were stable. More stable than my family, at least. Amara noticed Tunde before I did. One evening, she was lying on her bunk, scrolling through her phone, and she said, Amanda, that your friend Tunde, that boy is fine. Oh. I was reading my textbook. I didn't look up. Hmm? That's all you have to say? Hmm? The boy looks like Ramsey Noah and you're saying, hmm? I laughed. Amara, please. I'm reading. But she didn't drop it. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing up Tunde. Did you see what Tunde wore today? Tunde smiled at me in class today. Tunde and I chatted on WhatsApp for 30 minutes last night. That last one made my stomach twist in a way I didn't expect. I told myself it was nothing. Amara was just being Amara. She was friendly with everybody. And Tunde was Tunde. He was nice to everyone. There was nothing special about their interactions. But then one afternoon, I walked into our room unexpectedly. I had forgot my calculator, and I saw Amara sitting on her bed, wearing my necklace, the small silver chain that was the only piece of jewelry my mother had given me before I came to school. She was looking at herself in the small mirror we hung on the wall. Amara, I said, is that my necklace? She jumped. She quickly took it off and said, oh, Amanda, I'm sorry. I just wanted to see how it looked. I was going to tell you. I took the necklace. My hands were calm, but inside, something felt wrong. It wasn't about the necklace. It was about the look on her face when she saw me. That guilty, caught in the act look. And I wondered if she could wear my necklace without telling me, what else could she do behind my back? But I let it go. Because that's what we do, Abby. We let things go. We tell ourselves it's not a big deal. We swallow the discomfort like bitter leaf soup and we move on. I should not have moved on. By my third year, the pressure was unbearable. My mother's health was failing. She had developed high blood pressure, and the doctor said she needed to reduce her stress. But how could she reduce stress when she was the one running the business, raising two children, and paying school fees? She couldn't, so she kept pushing, and I kept pushing too. I was now on a scholarship, a small one, from the department. It covered my tuition, but not my living expenses. I still needed money for food, transport, handouts. The lecturers at UNILAG loved their handouts. They would teach you in class, but the real exam questions were in the handouts they sold for Waso 2,000, Suito 3,000. And if you didn't buy the handout, good luck to you. That was when the demands started. It began with Professor Adebayo again. He was now my project supervisor. A coincidence that made my stomach sink when I found out. During our first meeting, he told me that my project proposal was below standard and that I needed to rewrite it. I spent 2 weeks rewriting it. I showed it to him. He said it still wasn't good enough. I rewrote it again. He said it needed more work. And then he said, Amanda, I think we need to meet outside the office, maybe over lunch. I can explain what you need to do. Lunch. With my male project supervisor. At a restaurant. Alone. I knew what that meant. In Nigeria, we don't always say things directly. We speak in code. Let's meet for lunch doesn't always mean lunch. Come to my office after hours doesn't always mean discussion. I can help you doesn't always mean help. Sometimes it means, what are you willing to give in return? I said no. I said, sir, I can come to the office during working hours. I'm available anytime. He looked at me with those calculating eyes and said, as you wish. But the pressure didn't stop. He started marking my work harshly. He would give other students 70, 75, 80, but my assignments would come back with 45, 48, 52. He was punishing me. He was making me pay for saying no. And I wasn't the only one. There was a girl in my department, Folake. Folake was quiet, studious, just like me. One evening, she came to my room crying. Her whole face was swollen. She sat on my bed and told me that Professor Adebayo had told her the same thing. Meet him at a restaurant, come to his house to discuss her project. And when she refused, he failed her in his course. She had to retake it. And retaking a course in UNILAG meant paying again. Where was the Folake going to find that money? I held Folake's hand and I said, we'll figure it out, but I was lying. I didn't know how to figure it out. I was drowning in the same water she was. There was also another lecturer, Dr. Okonkwo, young, flashy, always wearing designer clothes and driving a black Camry. Dr. Okonkwo taught biochemistry practical. He was the type of lecturer who would give you extra marks if you laughed at his jokes, or if you sat in the front row and smiled at him. But if you were a girl and you didn't play along, he would make your life miserable in the lab. He would break your glassware and charge you for it. He would give you the worst experiments. He would mark you down for the slightest error. Dr. Okonkwo tried it with me once. After a practical class, he called me back and said, Amanda, wait. I want to discuss something with you. Everyone else had left. He locked the lab door, locked it, and walked toward me. My heart was pounding. He said, you know, you're very intelligent, but intelligence needs connections. I know people. I can connect you to opportunities, but you have to be willing. I looked at him and I said, sir, the door is locked. Open it. He stared at me. I stared at him. And then, slowly, he walked back and unlocked the door. I walked out. I didn't look back. My legs were like water, but I walked steadily. I refused to let him see me tremble. But not every girl was as lucky as me. This is the part of the story that still makes my blood boil. Even now, even after everything, when I think about it, my heart races. Amara, my roommate, my friend, the girl I shared everything with, food, clothes, secrets, dreams. The girl I told about Tunde, The girl I told about Professor Adebayo. The girl I cried to when I didn't have money to eat. That Amara. She went behind my back. It started when I noticed things were changing. Tunde started behaving differently around me. He was no longer warm. He was polite but distant. He would reply my messages late, or not at all. When I saw him in class, he would smile quickly and move on. Something was wrong, but I didn't know what. Then one day, I was coming from the library late at night. It was about 8 p.m. I was walking through the faculty premises when I saw two people sitting on a bench near the chemistry building. It was dark, but the street light was just bright enough for me to see their faces. It was Tunde and Amara, sitting close together. Amara's head was on his shoulder. His hand was around her waist. They were talking softly, laughing softly, the way people do when they're intimate, when they're comfortable, when they belong to each other. I stopped walking. My books almost fell from my hands. I stood there in the dark, watching my friend and the boy I cared about, and I felt something break inside me. Not loudly, quietly. The way glass breaks when you step on it slowly, a soft crashing sound that only you can hear. I didn't confront them. I turned around and walked back to the library. I sat in my corner, opened my textbook, and stared at the same page for 2 hours without reading a single word. Tears were falling silently onto the pages, making the ink run. The next morning, Amara came into the room, and she was glowing. She was humming a song. She sat on her bed and started doing her skincare routine, the little Vaseline and Nivea combo she used. And she turned to me and said, "Amanda, how was your night?" I looked at her face, and I saw nothing. No guilt, no shame, no awareness that she had done anything wrong. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and shake her and say, "How could you? I told you about him. I told you how I felt. You were supposed to be my friend." But I didn't, because I was raised in a home where you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't fight in public. You swallow your pain and you keep moving. So I said, "My night was fine, Amara. How was yours?" She smiled. "It was good, very good." And I smiled back, and I hated myself for it. Now, let me tell you about the night everything came to a head. The night Professor Adebayo's true nature was revealed. The night I almost lost everything. And the night I found the strength I didn't know I had. It was a Thursday. Professor Adebayo had sent me a message. "Come to my office by 9 p.m. We need to discuss your project. It's urgent. If you don't come, I cannot guarantee your grade." I stared at that message for a long time. If I didn't go, he would fail me. If I failed this course, I would lose my scholarship. If I lost my scholarship, I couldn't pay school fees. If I couldn't pay school fees, I would be sent home. And if I went home, I couldn't face my mother. I couldn't face her tired eyes and her calloused hands and hear her say, "Don't worry, Amanda. God will make a way." Because I was beginning to wonder if God had forgotten about us. So I went. I put on a simple blouse and a long skirt. Nothing revealing, nothing flashy. I tied my hair back. I looked at myself in the small mirror and whispered, "Amanda, you are strong. You will not break." I got to his office. The corridor was dark. Most of the offices were empty. His door was slightly ajar, and a yellow light spilled out from inside. I knocked. "Come in." I entered. He was sitting behind his desk. The office smelled of cologne, heavy, musky cologne. There was a bottle of wine on the desk, two glasses. My heart sank. "Sit down, Amanda," he said. His voice was smooth, too smooth. I sat down. I kept my hands in my lap, clasped together tightly. He poured wine into both glasses and pushed one toward me. "Have a drink. We have a lot to discuss." "No, thank you, sir. I don't drink." He laughed. You're a serious girl. I like that. He sipped his wine and looked at me over the rim of his glass. So, your project. I've reviewed it again. It's still not where it needs to be. I've been very patient with you, Amanda. Very patient. But there are limits. I'll rewrite it again, sir. Just tell me what needs to change. He leaned forward. It's not about rewriting, Amanda. You know that. You're a smart girl. You know exactly what this is about. I said nothing. He continued, I can help you. I can make this project the best in the department. I can give you an A. I can even help you get a postgraduate position. But you have to meet me halfway. You have to show me that you're grateful. There it was, the words hanging in the air like smoke. I looked at him, and I said something that surprised even me. I said, Professor Adebayo, my mother sells tomatoes in Ajah market. She wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning to go and buy tomatoes from the wholesalers. She carries heavy baskets on her head. Her back is bent. Her hands are rough. She does all of this so that I can sit in your classroom and learn, not so that I can sit in your office at 9 p.m. and be told that my education depends on what I do with my body. The room went silent. His face changed. The smile disappeared. His eyes went cold. He said, Then you can forget about passing my course. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood. I said, If I fail, I fail. But I will not be another story. I will not be another girl whose future was stolen by a man who was supposed to teach her. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently. And when I got outside, I broke. I sat on the steps of the faculty building and I cried. Not quiet tears this time. Loud, messy, gasping sobs. The kind of crying where your whole body shakes and you can't breathe and you feel like the world is crushing you. But even as I cried, I knew something. I knew that I had won something. Not a grade, not a scholarship. My dignity, my mother's sacrifice, my father's absence, my brother's dreams, all of it, I had protected it by saying no. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. Because sometimes when you think everything is falling apart, something unexpected happens. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. I was sitting on my bed, wondering how I was going to survive the semester when there was a knock on our door. Amara was already in class. I opened the door. It was Dr. Amina Bello. Now, Dr. Bello was a female lecturer in the department. Young, maybe in her mid-30s. She had a PhD from the University of Manchester, and she was the type of lecturer who actually cared about students. She wasn't like the others. She would stay after class to help students. She would share her notes for free. She even had a small fund she used to help struggling students with handout costs. She was, in my opinion, the only reason the department hadn't completely lost its soul. Amanda, she said, can I come in? Of course, ma. She sat on Amara's bed and looked at me. She must have seen the redness in my eyes, because she said gently, I heard about what happened with Professor Adebayo last night. I froze. Ma? She nodded. He has done this before, many times, to many girls, but most of them are too afraid to speak. I heard from one of the security guards that you left his office looking upset. Amanda, I want you to know, you don't have to go through this alone. I broke down again. Right there, in front of her. She held my hand and let me cry. And when I was done, she said something that changed everything. There is a hotline, a confidential one. The university has an anti-harassment committee. I know people on it. I will make sure your case is heard, but I need you to be brave. Can you do that? I nodded. And about your grades, she continued. I will personally review your project. If it's good, and I believe it is, I will advocate for an independent evaluation. Professor Adebayo, will not be the only voice in your academic future. I looked at her. This woman, this stranger, really was doing more for me than some people who claimed to care about me. And I thought about Amara, about Tunde, about all the people who were supposed to be in my corner but weren't. I said, "Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much." She smiled. "Don't thank me. Just keep going. Education is your weapon. Don't let anyone take it from you." Over the next few weeks, things started to unravel. Dr. Bello helped me submit a formal complaint to the Anti-Harassment Committee. It was terrifying, writing down everything Professor Adebayo had said and done. The comments about my appearance, the late-night meetings, the wine, the implicit threats. Putting it all on paper made it real in a way that made me feel sick. But I did it. Folek did too. And three other girls from different departments came forward. It turned out Professor Adebayo had a pattern, a long, ugly pattern that the university had quietly ignored for years. Professor Adebayo was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. When the news got around the department, some people were shocked. Others were not. A few male students even tried to defend him, saying, it's not a big deal now. He was just joking. Joking? You call that joking? That's the problem with this country. We normalize things that should be confronted, and we confront things that should be normalized. But the investigation was just beginning, and I knew it could take months. In the meantime, I still had to survive. I still had to pay school fees. I still had to eat. Dr. Bello connected me with a part-time research assistant position in her lab. It wasn't much, ila 25,000 a month, but it was enough. Enough for food, enough for transport, enough to breathe. And then there was Tunde. He came to see me one evening. He stood outside my door, outside, not inside, because he knew he had lost the right to sit on my bed, and he said, "Amanda, I need to talk to you." I stepped out. We stood in the corridor. He said, "I messed up. I know I messed up. Amara and it started 2 months ago." She told me how she felt, and I didn't handle it right. I should have told you. I should have been honest. I looked at him, the boy I had cared about, the boy who brought me groundnut soup, the boy who made me laugh when the world was falling apart. And I felt tired, not angry, not sad, just tired. I said, "Tunde, did you ever care about me, or was I just convenient?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I cared about you, Amanda. I still do. But I was confused. She was there, she was available. And you were always so focused, so strong, so independent. I didn't think you needed me." I almost laughed. Almost. That's the problem, Tunde. You assumed I didn't need you because I was surviving. Surviving is not the same as living. I was fighting every day, and all I needed was for someone to stand beside me. Not behind me, not in front of me, beside me. But you chose Amara because she was easier, because she didn't come with my kind of baggage. Abi? He couldn't answer. I said, "It's okay, Tunde. I forgive you. But we can't be what we were. That's gone. I need to focus on myself now. My education, my future, my family. That's what matters." He nodded. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I went back inside. I sat on my bed. I picked up my textbook, and I read. Months passed. The investigation into Professor Adebayo was concluded. He was found guilty of multiple counts of harassment and misconduct. He was dismissed from the university. Dismissed. After 15 years of terrorizing students, he was finally removed. And when the news came out, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Not completely. Some weights never fully leave you, but enough to breathe deeper. Amara and I stopped being friends. Not in a dramatic shouting match way. We just drifted. She moved to a different room. We exchanged pleasantries when we passed each other in the corridor, but that was it. The trust was gone. And once trust is gone, it doesn't come back. Not easily, anyway. As for Tunde, he apologized again, properly, face to face. He said he had ended things with Amara, not because of me, but because he realized he had been running from his own feelings. He said he was sorry for being weak. I appreciated the apology, but I didn't go back to him because I had learned something in those dark months. I had learned that my future was not dependent on any man, not my father, who left, not Professor Adebayo, who tried to take advantage of me, not Tunde, who chose the easy path. My future was mine, mine to build, mine to protect. Dr. Bello became my mentor. She guided me through my final year project. She helped me apply for a postgraduate position. She wrote me a recommendation letter that made me cry when I read it. She described me as one of the most resilient and intellectually gifted students I have ever encountered. Those words meant more to me than any grade. My mother, when I told her what had happened, not all the details but enough, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Amanda, I am proud of you. Your father left because he was weak. But you are strong. You are my strength. And Emeka, my little brother, said, Chichi, when I grow up, I'm going to fight all those bad men for you. I laughed and I cried. At the same time, I finished my degree, biochemistry, second class upper division. Not the first class I wanted, but I earned every single mark. No shortcuts, no compromises, no selling my dignity for grades. I'm doing my master's now, in the same department. And yes, some of the same problems exist. The culture hasn't changed overnight, but things are shifting. Slowly, the Inter-Harassment Committee is more active. More girls are speaking up. More people like Dr. Bello are using their positions to protect students instead of exploiting them. And me, I'm still that girl from Ajah. The girl who read under the streetlight. The girl who sold tomatoes with her mother. The girl who was almost broken by a man with a gray beard and a wine glass. But I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. The system is designed to break people like me. Girls from small rooms in Ajah. Girls whose fathers left. Girls who eat Indomie for dinner. The system wants us to be desperate enough to say yes to things we should never have to endure. But every time one of us says no, every time one of us chooses dignity over convenience, truth over comfort, self-respect over survival, the system cracks a little, and one day it will break. My name is Amanda Okafor. God is good, and I am just getting started. If you're watching this, and you're going through what I went through, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not weak for struggling. You are not wrong for saying no. And your future, it belongs to you. Don't let anyone, convince you otherwise. For every girl still fighting in silence, we see you. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notification to stay updated for more.